everybody, and welcome to the Road to Hope. And thank you for sticking around and watching my show. All right, so first, of course, shout out to my favorite girls, Amanda, Kate. What a show! Fantastic! You guys rock. And and Amanda, that show that I did with Kate, those questions you asked me, whew, wow, fantastic. So I hope I was a blessing to you by the answers I gave, but you certainly helped me think, and isn't that what it's all about? That's the one thing I know for sure that God wants for his people, is for his people to think. Let my people think. And, too often we get spoon-fed what society, what the government, what the cabal wants us to have, right? Schooling, for instance. The different things that were removed from school and the subjects that were replaced. All about conforming and being part of a whole, even though that whole may not be healthy. And so you got that. And what else do you have? Well, then you've got, when you grow up, what do you want? Well, you go to college. You have to go to college. If you're going to succeed, you have to get a degree. And then you end up in an office, a little cubicle, like a little rat in a maze. And sometimes you end up with a job that you hate. And all of that, my friends, really is part of an agenda. So today I want to talk about, in the first hour, now listen, you guys can call me, you know the number, it's right here. Call me, ask your questions. Maybe I'll have some answers that will help you. Also, we're going to talk about, so I guess you could say the first hour, ready? The satanic world system. Yeah, we're going to talk about some of the conspiracy theories that are true, but we're going to go even deeper than that. What's really going on behind the scenes? Second hour, as the exorcist. You got questions for me? Feel free. And again, it doesn't have to be for a second hour. We can just go with it. But this is kind of like the schedule I got in my mind. Call me. Now, I know there are some of you out there who are listening that are having spiritual issues, and you are not people who have been on, psych meds and you're off your meds or whatever. I'm talking about those of you who have been having some problems of a spiritual nature. Shadow man kind of thing. You feel like you're being oppressed. We're going to talk about that in the second hour. We're going to talk about little tools of the trade that we can use to get ourselves out from underneath psychic / supernatural attacks, because it's real. There are things that go bump in the night, and you could be the people that bump back. Hour number 3, open mic. We'll see where we go from there. But I've got something in my mind, and if nothing pans out in the first 2, that's all right. So let's get started. Okay, so now I saw the amazing show that our buddy Rob did, right? Oh my gosh. Amazing. And he was talking about he was talking about some conspiracy theories, but he really was talking about the powers that be that are controlling the system. And he didn't even manage to get through his show without trolls happening. I mean, it was crazy. Why? What is it about what our buddy Rob Yox was talking about that just totally made people want to shut his wisdom down? I want to say something to that. I don't know how many times I've seen this in different shows. I'm a big fan of Coast to Coast AM, especially during the years of Bell, right? Now we got George, and that's fine, but Art Bell, he was Mr. Coast to Coast. You know, George Norrie's great, and I used to listen to him when I used to do mall security. And when I did security with the military police, we would have Coast to Coast on. It was awesome. But there were times with different shows, they got a little too touchy on some things. And what would happen? You know, the show would start to freak out. You know, there would be even some of the machinery, even in their own studio, would freak out. Why? What was it? Was it this all-powerful government that has a way of affecting equipment? I wouldn't say all-powerful, but yeah, you know, they do have some technology. But there's something even deeper than that. See, my mission is to help open your eyes and to help to shine some light. Now, I have a unique position in the sense that not only do am I a reverend? So I deal with, you know, I help people, counsel people on a spiritual level, bringing people back to God, putting people back on the road to hope, because in this world, the way it is designed to be is to kill hope. You may say, well, wait a minute, isn't this God's world? No, it is not. In fact, if anything, large portions of this world, God is not even in it. Big swath of churches, Jesus himself doesn't even go to. I know, probably a shocker. But humanity forked over the rule of this world to Lucifer. Yes. Now, that was one of the questions that was asked to me this past week about the devil and him falling to the. Is he ruling in hell? Where did he go when he was cast out of heaven? Now, having also the flip side of being an exorcist / prophetic person, you know, being able, I guess you could say, psychically read people, the prophetic side. It actually gives me a unique perspective on what I can do to you know, help people. So I got it all covered, my friends. I really do. And it's just amazing. I'm a hybrid. And this is where we're at. See, God raises up people where, you know, God raises up messengers, raises up ministries that meet the environment, meets the climate of the environment for each generation. The prophetic person, the powerful prophetic healer or prophet or evangelist of the 30s and the 60s would not fit in this generation. So each generation gives a birth to a different person, a different breed of messenger. Okay, so what do I mean by this? Lucifer. There is a government that, yes, we got this, and we are covering it here at the Global Enlightenment Radio Network, I assure you. There is a cabal that's going on, a conspiracy, not theory, conspiracy fact, that governments are sliced up like orange, like, you know, like the orange slices. It's like that. You see, we already are operating on a global level, government-wise. And there is a cooperation of governments. But it's a smaller group, a cabal of people, I guess you could say, that run things. And even religions are affected by this. Because not all religions are ruled by God. I know. Probably going to get myself in trouble with that one, but it's absolutely unequivocally true. because religion is the imitation. Let me define religion so you kind of understand what I'm saying here. Religion is the form of godliness, the form of holiness that outrightly denies the power that it should have. It outwardly looks like a beautiful, beautiful church, but inwardly it's filled with corruption. Because all religion is the act of being holy, the act of following all these rules and rituals without the spiritual revelation and connection. You know, I think one of the shows in the past, I talked about how David, a boy, killed Goliath. And yet, the whole Israeli army couldn't kill this giant. They were terrified of him. They didn't even respond to the taunt. This happened for about a month. And the whole Israeli army didn't even respond to this giant's call. But this 13-year-old kid, most scholars will agree that this kid was preteen, teen to preteen. So he was a kid. But he tells the king that God delivered him from the mouth of the lion, because he was a shepherd boy, and God delivered him from the lion and from the bear and from all these different challenges that he had up until that point. What was the difference? The difference was he was circumcised. Well, wait a minute, wasn't the Israeli army circumcised too, since they were all part of the same religion? Yes. What was the circumcision but the mark of a blood pact that was made with David's ancestor, Abraham? And the promise that was made in that blood was that the enemies of Abraham and his descendants forever would be the enemies of God, and God would defeat them for them. That was one of many promises. And as proof, since it was part of the ritual of the blood pact, in this case, the covenant mark or the blood pact mark was circumcision. Now, David, he's heard all this because that was part of his training as a child. Now, this was not indoctrination for control, but God did the indoctrination for liberation, to raise David's consciousness, to raise David's awareness to the point where he had an undefeatable attitude. And he had it because he was able to kill a lion as a younger child than the one standing before the king. At this point, King Saul was in control. So if that's the case, and David was able to slay Goliath with a sling, whereas in the past, slings weren't even effective against Goliath. But this one sling shot through the puny arm of a kid, knocked the giant out, and David was able to take the sword of Goliath and lop off his head. But what he said to the king was, God gave me victory over all these enemies of mine. So who is this uncircumcised Philistine? Or who is this guy who does not have a blood oath with the Most High? He was operating under revelation. Now this is where it gets real, my friends, because life is not random, okay? Things happen for a reason. You know, there's a talk about how this world is a matrix. It is. How time is not real. That's true. All of reality was created by a being who has no beginning and no end, who is ever present and all-powerful. So with God, there is no time. Time only exists for us because we have a beginning and we have an end. So that's where the time comes in. And of course, time always dictates space. So time and space. Because with God, there is none. In the spirit realm, there is no space. So how then can I get to a place where I can access this on a regular basis? And what are you talking about? This government thing. Think about this, my friends. Lucifer was the bright and shining one. He called himself the son of the morning, or the morning star. But that title belongs to Jesus. And there's a reason why it belongs to Jesus. But we'll get to that at another time. So he is this being who is very prideful, very powerful, the most powerful of all the angelic beings of heaven. And there is an innumerable amount of angels. What's the word angels in the Greek? Angelis, which means messenger. But these are spirit beings. And this one particular spirit being was ever in the presence of God. And was a fiery being, very powerful, and I from what I can understand, from what I can discern from my studies, both in scripture and in other sources that are reliable, it seems that he was in command, and Michael was the second. Now Michael's in command. Why? Because Lucifer fell. Lucifer disconnected from God. And remember, there's a principle. Everything starts in the spirit and then manifests in the natural. Well, rebellion works the same way. It works in the heart and manifests in the natural. And so this rebellious spirit, where did it come from? A lot of scholars don't know. And so, but it was because he started saying things like, I will ascend. I will become like God. I will sit and rule in God's place. And he thought he could defeat God. So there's something about God that made Lucifer think he could defeat him, which is fascinating to me. But I think what stirred up Lucifer was he wanted to be God. Now God creates man on the 6th day with his hands. No other creation was created that way, and then he breathed upon them. Well, that breath, what that means, he took a portion of himself and he put it inside this clay being, and Adam became a living being. And then he was granted God-like authority and power over the planet. He was to rule over the earth as God rules over heaven. Now, you've heard me say that before. I'm just saying again, this is important that we catch on to this. And then Lucifer, I think, was quite miffed by this and was like, that's it, I'm done, because I want to rule over this thing. And he was immediately struck to the earth like lightning hits the ground. Bam! Because Jesus testified that he saw Satan fall as lightning. And that's some severe force. Why? Well, think about it. How fast does darkness flee from a room when you turn on the light? Instantaneously. So, in a sense, that's what happened. And an innumerable amount of angels fell with him. These are beings of different kinds of spirit beings. Different shapes, different kinds, all kinds of varieties. There is a beautiful explosion of life in the spirit world. And there's a beautiful, all kinds of beautiful expressions of beautiful creatures that exist in this other dimension, at another vibration, call it what you will. And these beings were forced out of the spirit realm and pressed into the physical realm, where they are now forever wandering the earth. They can no longer have access to heaven, so here they are. Now, at this point, there's a separation. There's a school of thought that says that these beings went into hell. And there is some grounding for that. Whenever you study these other books that claim to be spiritual revelation, you have to follow the principle of the law first mentioned. What that means is, and this also goes for any other manifestation of a prophetic or psychic gift, and that is, you always judge the current brand new revelation by an older one that's been established. So if you already know that this has been established, then you take this new one and can you match it up? Does it have a thread in it of commonality? Perhaps it's chapter 2 of a continuing story, then okay. But if it doesn't, then it came from somewhere else. The work of deception to undermine the rule of God began when Lucifer fell. And the first thing he did was murder mankind. Murder mankind, yeah, because what he did was he incited rebellion, and Adam rebelled against God, and he partook of the knowledge of good and evil. That's duality. That is the balance of good and evil. That is works mentality, because God created man on the 6th day so that he could rest with God on the 7th. Think of it. He could have created man in the beginning, but he didn't. In fact, he created man on the 6th day, and on the 7th day, God ceased from his labor and entered into this rest. Now, it doesn't mean that God was sleepy or he was tired. It just means he stopped working. And on the 7th day was the fulfillment of everything. And so, not only has that happened, but it's also being played out also. So, yes, there was a literal week, but now there's also the process working out. Now, I hope I'm not boring. Look at that, see? That was the adversary striking me down. All right, I bumped the camera and it fell over. Okay, Sylvester, I'm good. All right. And I'm looking over at my buddy Daryl, and he looks like he's half asleep. Poor guy thinks he's probably in church. Just playing with you, buddy. It's good to see you, my friend. All right, so what happened? He fell, and he separated himself from God. And when Adam separated from God, he was separated from life, and at that moment, he did die. In the eyes of the Creator, in the eyes of the spiritual world, human beings are dead because they have been separated from God during this beginning point. Then the whole you reap what you sow principle started coming into play, and then, or call it karma, or whatever. And so now this process of trying to get back to God has ever been the, order of the day? Yes. Now, this is not how God wants the world to be, because God wants the world to be in a place of rest so they can enjoy the presence of God, which is light and joy and peace and kindness and gentleness and faithfulness and all these wonderful things and miracles, and that day is coming. But what happened is Satan started working his kingdom. Now there are two kingdoms at play. But at one point there was only one kingdom. It was a spiritual one. And when these other angelic beings fell, they had pledged their allegiance to Lucifer. Now think about it. If this being was powerful enough to even think of rebelling against God, and that these other supernaturally powerful beings found that they could still submit themselves to Lucifer, did they stop in their allegiance with him when they fell to the earth? No, they did not. And so, you are talking about a primordial evil with a vast intelligence far beyond any human being at his wisest could possibly be. And then multiply that by 100. and you've got an intellect similar to Lucifer. Now, he knows that the principles of heaven work. So he's applying the same principles, but this time he is going to work on undoing everything God did. And he is working towards being God in this world. And so he sends these out all over the planet. And I find it fascinating, especially, that show Ancient Aliens, and it talks about how there was proof that there were these beings that came and they ruled over the earth. It was almost like they came from heaven. Well, there was a time when that happened, and that was during the time of the Great Flood. Now, the reason why I'm talking about this today is because there's a lot of science today that fulfills a prophecy that Jesus said that the day of the end times would be like the days of Noah. Now, the version I'm going to tell you is straight out of the Bible, but you're going to think I read it out of some of, maybe Michael Cremo's book or Zachariah Sitchin. But these people, there's some truth to what I'm about to say. These beings chose to press themselves into the physical. Now, they had fallen to earth, but they were still invisible. But they chose to mingle with the daughters of men. And they merged with the daughters of men. And the children of these beings were called the Nephilim. Now, imagine vastly intelligent beings coming from another world, invading the earth. They would seem like gods to men who had drifted away. Now imagine these beings coming along and calling themselves gods. Zeus, for instance, is a fallen angel. And Osiris, well, not Osiris, but Ra is a fallen angel. And so all these different kinds of beings that called themselves gods were literally the fallen ones that were assigned, the generals, I guess you could say, that were assigned to corrupt the bloodline of the earth. Why? Why would they? Again, now see, this is a DNA thing. This is a changing the DNA of the human race. But why would these beings, why would Lucifer want to change the DNA of the human race? It is because God had said to both Adam and Eve, listen, now you started down the road. Now you guys are separate from me, and I'm going to have to push you out of my presence because light and dark can't be in the same place, but I'm going to be there for you. You just got to call out to me. And then he said, but listen, I will fix I already knew this was going to happen, so I'm going to fix the problem. A child born of a woman, a male child, will be born from you, your seed, talking to Eve, will crush the seed or the descendants of the evil one. Descendants of the evil one? Well, obviously there must be physical children of the evil one. This is what he was referring to. And he would crush the head of the serpent. The Nachash is the Hebrew. Nachash, or shining one. Call it what you will. Later on, in the New Testament, he would be referred to as the dragon. Again, a serpent. So, fascinating. Now, why did he have a program to alter the DNA of the human race? Because he is trying to pollute the bloodline so this male child would not be born that would end up destroying the power of Lucifer himself. I mean, wow. That is amazing. By the way, when I was referring to Rob earlier, he was talking about the conspiracy theory and how we had the trolls. That is Full Spectrum Universe. I never get the name right for some reason, but there you go. Full Spectrum Universe. Catch it on Tuesdays. My gosh, you want an education? check them out. Anyway, so I'm just giving you the news behind the news. You want to know why the things that Rob is saying is true? Because there is a spiritual element to everything. You are spirit beings in a physical body. Never forget that. There is a spiritual world out there filled with spirit beings, both good and evil. It's just the way it is. And in the work that I do as an exorcist, I come face to face with these things. So it's not like anybody can say, well, demons aren't real, it's just a sign of a psychological issue. Well, I hate to tell you, buddy, don't think so, because there's a difference. Anyway, back to my point. So the bloodline would be polluted, and this supernatural human will never be born. And so that's what he did. And so soon, the earth was covered in these hybrids, these Nephilim. And this is where you get the stories of the heroes of renown, like Hercules or Perseus, or even where you get these creatures like the Medusa. And so, yes, some of these stories are made up, but most legends have a kernel of truth to it. But these beings were not good. These beings were evil. And remember, the human race already is separated from God. And the human race was living much longer than us. We're like mayflies compared to how the human race lived so long back in ancient times. Why? Because it was life and death is in the power of your tongue. And God said that. Choose life or choose death. That always is the path to every person. But they were so close to life. The time between the garden and the flood, or the time of the garden and when these beings fell and did their thing, the time had not yet passed where they were trained to start speaking more death than life. You see, when you continually start seeing evil in the world, you start what? Thinking evil. And when you start thinking evil, what do? You speak evil. And you start speaking death over yourself. You speak death over your family. What is that? It's like, life and death is in the power of the tongue. James says that the tongue is a small member, yet it changes the whole course of one's life. And you can set your life on fire, the fire of hell. And it's true. Think about some of the things you said in the past that got you in so much trouble. But there's a supernatural element to it. Because we're made in the image and likeness of God, we create in our life by what we say. Because it comes from the heart. And if our heart is not filled with the hopefulness of God, then we will always bend towards our heart being filled with darkness and death. So we say things like, well, so goes Monday, so goes the rest of the week. And what if Monday really stunk for you? Now you're just saying, guess what? It always happens. My life stinks. Well, the more you say it, the more you believe it, the more you believe it, the more it manifests. See? And Jesus even said, you can say to this mountain, be removed to be cast into the sea. And if you do not doubt, but believe those things which you say will come to pass, you can have whatever you say. But he didn't say just for good. So now let's just go back. The human race had not yet caught on to the satanic agenda to perpetually speak death. So he had to do something radical. And that's what he did. He mingled and played with the DNA of the human race and created these beings. So when God says, I regret that I made man. That's called an anthropomorphism. That means an anthropopathism. That means that the writers were inspired. They see the vision or whatever, and to best describe what was going on, they kind of make God like a man. And so it wasn't that God regretted per se. It was like God was like, I can't have this. This is not the world I created. But God always has a plan. The whole time he had hid Noah, and he had hid Noah's family. And that bloodline continues to this day. But interesting, there is a scripture in Genesis that says, so the Nephilim were destroyed, most of the Nephilim was destroyed by the flood. But there will be Nephilim after. And so may I say that there are those hybrids that walk the earth today, just from generation to generation. So when they talk about how, people catch that, maybe those that are higher ups, those who are in authority over the earth, that are facilitating a satanic agenda, the Luciferian agenda, of course, because they are the generations of the pure bloodlines, they call it. The pure bloodlines of what? Jesus? No. The bloodline of the Nephilim. So, I mean, there it is. It sounds like far-fetched, but look at it yourself. Study it out for yourself, and you'll see what I'm saying. You think that after Lucifer fell to the earth, all he did was sit around and be, twiddle his thumbs? See, then he spins these lies. Well, he was cast down to hell, and now he's imprisoned in hell, and he rules over hell. Isn't that what we have been led to believe? That's not true. Or maybe he might sneak out of hell and make deals with people, and people will sell their soul to the devil. Well, that's actually true. People have sold their soul to the devil. But that's redundant. Now, how do I make this interesting? Now, feel free to call me. If you disagree with what I'm saying, call me. But there is a Luciferian government that is going on. And this is the shadow government. And people, let's just say, some people say that a guy named George Soros, with his vast amount of wealth, with his agenda, trying to control things. Well, you think that's his idea? George Soros probably thinks that he's the one that originates the idea, but he doesn't realize he's actually being manipulated by a darker force. And that wealth is being funneled not for his agenda, but for his master's agenda. If, and I'm giving him the benefit of the doubt, because that's what I'm all about, I don't judge. But if his agenda is not in line with life and that more abundantly, if his agenda doesn't promote the benefit of mankind in his restoration to his creator, well then, he's being manipulated. See, that's what is going on. And so just going back to the flood, so God destroyed a large portion of the Nephilim because he will have his will always. And then the population started growing again. And it got to the point where now the land masses are still together. And we're, Pangea, and the Bible talks about that too. There was one land mass surrounded by water. And they wanted to build the tower. We talked about the tower last week, and now I'm just kind of connecting that. Why? They wanted to be like God, but they wanted to be like God to conquer again. And God then broke the nations apart and confused the language. So there's that. It's the agenda that is in the spiritual realm is being reflected in the natural. Now, do we have the power to think for ourselves? Of course we do. because we have free will. But unfortunately, the forces of darkness know how the spiritual world works, knows the principles and the science and how to work things. And we don't. So when we see supernatural signs, we're like, oh, that must be God. But the Apostle Paul, and I say the Apostle Paul because apostle just means sent one, or Saint Peter. And I'm going to prove to you from the scripture that there's a satanic agenda. And then, Saint Peter was like, listen, test every spirit and see if they're from God. Any spirit that does not declare that Jesus, the Christ, manifested into human flesh, or Jesus Christ is Lord, well, they're not from God. There was a case I did where I was praying with the guy that purportedly was possessed, and so far he wasn't manifesting anything, so I was like, okay, well, I'll just pray with him. And so I was leading him in the prayer, and when it got to the point where he was saying, thank you, I believe that Jesus Christ is Lord, he could only say the Jesus part, and then he couldn't. It was like he was trying. It was like he was pushing. He slammed up against a wall, and his whole persona changed. And this demonic spirit manifested because what was hidden was exposed. And so I had to work with that. But that's what I'm saying. They cannot agree with what God's doing, because when God was talking to Adam and Eve, he was like, this person who was born, this male child, will destroy the devil and bring the judgment against a final judgment. And so goes the head, so goes the rest of the body, correct? In the Middle East, the way they kill the snake, smash the head. So that's why it said that he will crush its head, but he will bruise the heel. In other words, he will suffer a mortal injury. Wow. Now, those of you who know Daniel Lion's Den, you've heard that story? Well, Daniel saw how the people of God were drifting. Welcome to the club. But even God had created a race of people from one man. He's like, listen, I'm going to make a whole race of people out of you, and the whole purpose of these people would be that they would be the physical sign of my presence. I will work my presence, my power through your descendants. And they were the Jewish people. So now Israel is kind of drifting, and so Daniel's praying, because he's like, oh, please, would you please rescue? He had prayed and he asked for, what is the future of Israel? Because obviously they're not obeying you, so if they're going to side with the evil one. And for the longest time too, my friends, the devil had remained hidden. And people didn't know that there was a devil. And they didn't know that there was a great fall. Only a few people did, but as a planet, Lucifer was hidden. As this popular saying goes, one of the greatest tricks the devil ever pulled was to make people think he never existed. And to this day, people will say, oh, the devil's not real. Or he's a god of the Christians. In other words, he's a Christian god, like we have a pantheism. No, there's only one God, and Lucifer is not a god. That again is reflections of Greek mythology. Anyway, okay, Daniel. He's in prayer, and he's like, please just show me if if there's a future for Israel. And then God actually responds. He sends an angel. But it took a while for the answer of the prayer to happen. And Gabriel shows up, the messenger of God, and he says, "The prince of the kingdom of Persia withstood me 21 days, but Michael, one of the chief princes, came to help me, for I was left with the kings of Persia." What? This is an angel. I'm just taking it out of context, but I want you to see it for yourself. I'm revealing the context to you. It says that when he is encountered by the spiritual being, this angel, he says that he was withstood by the prince of Persia. And Michael, the archangel, had to come with the assist to help, so to release the angel so that he could actually bring the message. Why? What was so important? Think about this, how important this is. The government is in place, Satan is hiding, and he's working his invisible government, manipulating kings and everything. He's doing all this thing. And Daniel sees that there's something going on, but he can't put his thumb to it, so he's asking God for assistance. This angel comes, but he comes later than expected, but when he manifests, he says that there's a prince of Persia. Well, the prince of Persia is not referring to a physical prince. He was referring to the demonic prince that ruled over Persia. And that Michael, the archangel, had to come and battle in the spiritual realm to release Gabriel so he could bring this message. But wait a second, what was so important about the message of Gabriel that the satanic forces tried to stop the message getting to Daniel? And who is Daniel but a lowly man? What was so important about Daniel that it can't get to him? You see, again, the human race, the human being, is made in the image and likeness of God. And he was created to demonstrate the invisible attributes of God. He holds the authority of what happens in the earth. That's why the battle is over human beings, because the human being holds the key, and he either can stop what's going on in the world, or he can release what goes on in the world. And so, now Daniel is part of the covenant that God created. So now he has permission to release. He has the power. The world did not. You see, because why? Because when God created this race through Abraham, he restored those people to a place where they had the authority to cooperate with God and release the heavenly agenda. So Daniel was one of those people. He was circumcised, so therefore he was one of those people that was influential enough to release the agenda of God by speaking out the prophecy. And by releasing the prophecy, whatever this message that Gabriel had, by releasing it, it activates it. Think about that. That is how powerful the human being is. That's how powerful the redeemed man is, that he can release the agenda of heaven by speaking it, and by speaking it in faith. Now, the emotions have to be in it. Mixing that up, it actually creates the very thing spoken. These angels understand that. The demons understood that, and that's why they tried to prevent Gabriel getting the news to him. Now, yes, just because under the old covenant, which was the covenant made with Abraham, man was not restored in unity with God. It was like man had been washed, but not reconnected. So they had authority to release the agenda, but they had not yet been redeemed. In other words, they had not yet been brought back into, even beyond Adam, into unity with God. What was the message? The message was this: yes, Israel will survive. Israel will have its place. But the other was a message that of the man-child born of a woman would destroy the head of the serpent. And Daniel that was part of the prophecy. See, he had asked for the future of Israel, but God not only gave him the future of Israel, but the future of the human race as well. And they could not have that, because that would undo the work of the evil one. And so, that's what happened. Fascinating. That would make sense. There's always going to be some resistance somewhere when the truth is being spoken.
Amen, sir.
So, and that's Daniel 10:13. That's where it says the Prince of Persia. Now, later on in Ezekiel, it says, there was a Prince of Persia, or the Prince of Tyre and Sidon. And it says, because, and he's talking about, and in Ezekiel, this prince, now God is talking to this prince, and he said, because your heart was lifted up, you walked in the garden of God. And he's talking to a prince. You walked in the garden of God, and your heart was lifted up, and you will be brought down low, and you will be destroyed, and you will be thrown into a pit, and the leaders of the world will look upon you and say, are you the one that caused all this problem? You, little old tiny insignificant, you're the one that did all this? Because he will finally be exposed once and for all, and the power will be broken. But he was speaking to a prince. But wait a second, how can a prince be in the Garden of Eden? Because God was not speaking to a physical prince, but to a demonic prince over a city. There are demon princes that rule over major cities, and they rule over different areas of the world. And their agenda is to unify the world again, so that they can undo the work of God. And that's what they're always doing. There's nothing new under the sun. That's what Solomon said. Okay, so then, just as an interesting side note, in the Gospels, when Judas betrays Jesus, it says that Lucifer himself entered into the heart of Judas, or entered into his innermost being. And he personally, in the body of Judas, brought the killing blow to Jesus. He betrayed Jesus to the high priests for 30 pieces of silver. Which, by the way, 30 pieces of silver was the slave's price. To buy a slave was 30 pieces of silver. So, to buy a slave. And so that's what God was reduced to. 30 pieces of silver. Once the deed was done, it says that it's not, because when you read it, it sounds like he's having a crisis of conscience. It's like, what have I done? I have literally betrayed an innocent man. And he tried to give the money back, and they're like, we don't know what you're talking about. And slammed the door in his face, and he was so despondent about what he did, he hung himself or committed suicide. And that's what Lucifer wanted. So see, there is possession. And Lucifer wanted to be the one to kill Jesus because Jesus fit everything that the prophecies had said, and he saw it, and he wanted to personally take care of that. Early on, we see Peter say, "You are the Christ." No one else saw it but Peter. He said, you are God. You're the God-man. And he worshipped Jesus. And Jesus said, "Flesh and blood has not revealed this truth to you, but my Father who is in heaven." Wow, great, right? A couple hours later, after Jesus describes how he was going to be betrayed and handed over to the chief priests, he talks to Jesus and is like, "You are not going. No, don't go. You can't go." And Jesus looks right into Peter and through him and says, "Satan, get behind me." In other words, you're in my past. Be gone. You are a stumbling block to me because you have the interests of men at heart, not the interests of God. Remember, men as a whole are separated from God and largely are selfish, but God knows best because he created the human race, and he knows that the greatest joy and fulfillment would be to be reunited with the Creator. But Satan knows man's lower nature and knows how that is, and that's why he did that. So he's been trying to handle the whole situation of Jesus' life personally, because why all the other prophets were persecuted and killed. Look at it from a spiritual perspective. Wouldn't you? If you saw somebody rise up with some amount of power that maybe brought some healing and could do a little damage to your kingdom, you would kill them because you don't know who is who. Moses. There was some spiritual activity going on around Moses' life when he was born. And Lucifer saw that, and he's like, "Okay, I guess I'm going to have to take care of that." So he tells the Pharaoh, or gives the Pharaoh a thought, that all babies from the age, I forgot what the age was, from 3 and below, take them from the land of Egypt and the male children, and throw them into a pit of alligators. I know, awful, right? So the mother of Moses saw how there was something special about her son that was even beyond the mother's thing. It was a spiritual thing. So she put him in a basket and put him into the Nile. And the Nile moved the baby along right to when an Egyptian princess was bathing. And thus Moses was adopted and raised by the Egyptians. Fascinating. And there's a whole story about how he became the deliverer of Israel. But Lucifer saw that. Why am I mentioning this story? Because when Jesus, we hear about the nativity and Jesus' birth, but there's one detail some people forget, and that was that King Herod ordered the death of children 3 years old and younger, because he wasn't going to be replaced by some king. Because how did he know that? Because the wise men came and they were like, "Yeah, we received the signs that a God child would be born, both human and God, and we have come to worship this baby." What? So, yeah, let us know where he is. And then the 3 wise men said, sure, and then they went their way. Now, King Herod was a Jewish man, and so he should have known the scriptures because he grew up with them. So he went to the wise men, and he said, "What's going on?" And they said, "Oh, yeah, it's in the prophecies that the Messiah, the God-man, would be born in the city of Bethlehem at a certain time to a virgin." Now, they're spitting out everything. But here's the question, why didn't they go? The same reason why David was able to kill Goliath but the rest of the Israeli army wasn't, because David had the revelation of the covenant. The army of Israel only followed the religion, the religious rituals, thinking that would help them. And so it was the same. These wise men talking to Herod, the Jewish wise men, the Jewish leaders that told him the prophecy, were so familiar with the scripture that they were familiar with it. It was a tradition. It held no revelation to them, or they would have gone to visit him too. Is that fast? That blows my mind. I mean, they had been waiting for the Messiah to show up. They just said their prophecy, and they don't even believe it. But I wouldn't point too harshly at them, because we're guilty of the same. I am painting a picture that there is, to this day, a government of darkness. Now, Jesus changed everything, because Lucifer arranged for Jesus' crucifixion, thinking that would destroy Jesus. That's the bruising of a heel. Because when you bruise a heel, you cripple the person, you hurt them, but you don't kill them. But Lucifer did kill Jesus. In fact, he even mocked Jesus on the cross. He even had Peter deny Jesus. He did everything he could to stop it. In his pride, not to stop it, but what's the word I'm thinking of? He did everything he could to stop Jesus from doing the mission that he was doing. And he was succeeding. At least he thought he was. Because that part was kept out of the memo, I guess you could say. So Lucifer was only operating by what he knew, not by what was really there. That actually his death was necessary. So he had Jesus killed. And the two thieves mocked him. The religious leaders mocked him. If you're the Son of God, come off the cross. You heard that before, when he was tempted in the wilderness, and Satan said, if you're the Son of God, turn your stones into bread. Why did they say that? Because when Jesus was baptized, God spoke and said, you are my beloved Son in whom I am well pleased. It was a voice from heaven, a supernatural sign that this was literally the Son of God. What does that mean? It just means that Jesus, the physical person of Jesus, was literally the extension of the Father himself. You take three flames and you put them together, they burn as one flame, not as three flames. So you have three flames, but they're burnt as one, ever. So one of the flames, which is God, manifested in the earth without being separated from God. It's fascinating, but it's a thing that's why it's called the mystery. But he proved himself to be God because after 3 days he rose from the dead, and that utterly and completely defeated Lucifer when he said, it is finished. What was finished? The agenda of restoring mankind to a place beyond Adam and Eve, back to unity with God as one. So now there are two kingdoms that are at work in the earth, the kingdom of darkness and the kingdom of light. And that's where we're at today. So yes, there is a satanic agenda in the earth, but God's kingdom is constantly growing. And the kingdom in the Greek is ecclesia, which the translators of the New Testament called that church. Well, the church. But when we say the church, we think in the Catholic Church, or we think the Protestant Church, or we think a church is a building, or there's the church is the people. No, the church, the true church, or the ecclesia, we'll call it the ecclesia. The ecclesia is actually the group of people that God intended when he created the Jewish people. In a way, the Jewish people were the prototype of a group of people that would exist later, that would literally be an extension of Jesus himself. And that it would be an embassy, that's perfect, an embassy of heaven on the earth. Not in a religious way, I'm only talking spiritual matters, and more of a mystical thing. And that's why you have this battle that goes on. Think of this, out of all the names of all the gods that exist in the earth, the one that's blasphemed across the planet as a cuss word is the name of Jesus. Ever wonder why? I mean, if you let my people think. Why would that be so? It is so because the name of Jesus is the very thing that can undo the forces of darkness. Anyway, so that is what is going on. That's why Paul was saying, when people persecute you and they say all kinds of things, forgive them, because we don't fight against people, but against the principalities, that's princes, and powers. Those are the other government bodies of the spirit realm. The spirit realm of darkness. There are princes that we deal with, and there are powers that we have to deal with from time to time when we work with people. And so when the truth gets exposed, it's almost like we have to, they have to deal with it. So that's what happens. So one of two things happens. Either A, this guy's a reverend, all he's doing is preaching, I don't want to hear none of that God stuff. Well, it's good. Don't, because that way, as far as Lucifer's concerned, I'm good. Go pay attention to him. What does he know? I had a case once. I'm getting into the exorcist part of our show. There was a case I was called upon by TAPS. It was actually the Johnson brothers, Carl and Keith Johnson, that asked me to take this case, and this was a woman in Pennsylvania who had been physically assaulted and sexually assaulted by a demon. And all the hallmarks was there. There was the sickness that they couldn't understand, the doctors couldn't get, the money was being all dried up. It was one thing after another, and it was like all the hallmarks was, and the manifestations were so often and so prevalent that it attracted paranormal investigators like flies to you-know-what. And I don't have a problem with paranormal investigation, but I do have a problem with how it's handled from time to time. I really do. Some of them could care less about the actual client. They just want their name out there. Anyway, don't get me started on that. So, all right, what is an exorcist? Before I start with that case, let me just cut. Okay. Next hour, exorcist. I'll continue if you're interested now. You make sure you leave a comment below if you're interested to learn more about how this government operates as far as its connection to the spiritual. Let me know, and I'll give you more details. If not, then we'll just leave that alone. But now we're into the second hour of the Ask the Exorcist. Now I've got a few questions here that people have asked me. So, what is an exorcist? Is an exorcist a demonologist? Someone asked me that today. They asked me, well, where was I certified as a demonologist? Well, I'm not a demonologist. And there's a lot of demonologists that are not exorcists. Now, at the same time, I am not affiliated with any denomination. I'm not a Catholic priest. I am a priest of God, okay? Christianity, yes, but not Catholicism, not Protestantism per se. So, hope that was clear for you. But an exorcist is a title that was given to people who have been trained and who possess the authority to drive out evil spirits from either a person, place, or a thing. And the other part of that, which I don't see often, is the exorcist also works towards the rehabilitation of spiritually and emotionally the person affected by the spirit. So let's just say, like this woman, okay, she was afflicted by a demon. She was being sexually tormented by a demon. And so we would say that was a succubus and an incubus. That is something that came from the early church fathers. But to describe demons that specialize in sexually tormenting human beings. You have to understand that these beings hate humanity. Hate. Lucifer hates humanity. And anything that says the opposite is not true. Why does he hate mankind so much? Because we are made in the image and likeness of his enemy. And he especially hates the Jew, and he hates the Christian because of the blood covenants and because of what we point to. They point to a Messiah who will destroy the adversary, and we point to Jesus who already did it. And so, and because we know the true God. So they want to silence us, and they want to torture us and torment us. And you think about it, of all the peoples of the earth, why is it that the Jews are the ones that have suffered the most? And then right next to that would be Christianity. In fact, Christianity now is one of the most persecuted religions. Of course, that's suppressed, but it's true. Why? How come Buddhism isn't? Or how come any of the other ones? Just for you to think. All right, so now this woman in Pennsylvania, tormented. And so I was called in, and I had a person that I brought along with me, a person I trained, to go, because he also had the same calling. So I wanted to make sure that he was trained. So I get there, and immediately there was 3 teams in this place. Anyway, but one of the team leaders, a woman, looked at me and she rolled her eyes. I mean, could you possibly be more disrespectful? And that's, hey, I am retired United States Army. Been in the Coast Guard and Air Force. Please, thick skin, no big. Whatever. But I had a sense that this particular, actually there was several spirits in this house. And there was one in particular that just wanted a chance to harm us, the crew, the different crews, whatever. And so I was like, listen, I would like to pray a blessing for you guys, a blessing of protection, and then you guys would be all right. And the other 2 teams were like, yeah, thanks, man. So bless them. But the woman was like, no, I don't need that blessing. Okay, all right. Because hey, people have free will. I'm not going to force. God doesn't force His will on people, believe it or not. So religion does. Religion forces their will on people, but God does not. That's why, in fact, Gandhi said, Jesus I love, but his people, I don't know. He's talking about religion. Not Anyway, so the case in Pennsylvania, it took off, and I mean it took off fast. People were picking up voices on their ghost boxes, and there was the infrared, and the electromagnetic field thing was going off. It was crazy. And so we were ministering to the woman, and we were praying for her, and she had a demon in her, and it did not want to go. Not leave it. This is my house. It was actually a spirit of witchcraft. Apparently, there was a practice of satanic witchcraft in that house. And then they left the house when they were finished doing their nefarious work, or they died. They obviously didn't shut down any portals or anything. They just left. Now here's this poor woman. She comes in, and she starts to get afflicted gradually. And then next thing you know, she's getting raped by an invisible force. Imagine how terrifying that would be. But it's real, my friends, and I'm sorry to say, but it's real. So we helped her, and we managed to get that spirit cast out of her. But we let the paranormal investigators do their thing, because I had told them, if I go through the place and bless the place, you guys are not going to pick up anything. So go ahead, do your thing, and then we'll wait. And they were picking up all kinds of stuff, and that was a perfect example of how that particular neighborhood was under the influence of an evil spirit. That town, that city. And that's why we are here. We're doing a mop up now, really, because the work of the evil one has been destroyed by Jesus. Jesus said it is finished. And in Colossians 2, it says that now the power of the adversary has been rendered defenseless, disarmed, the principalities and powers against those of the covenant people of God. And now we see in Mark 16 that those who truly believe on the name or the character, the person of Jesus Christ, actually possesses kingdom authority to cast out demons. Amazing. So, if there's any questions, I'm sure there is somebody who can, get the phones.
No question, so
or text. Yep. Oh, okay. Good.
I understand what
so you're on it, Chris. Okay, because. Oh, good. But I didn't see anybody, so I didn't know. Oh, okay. There we are. Okay. I was getting scared.
I
didn't see my mama. Okay, so should we take a break? Can I take a 5-minute? No, not 5 minute. Can I take a 2-minute break? Anyone? I guess not. All right, I'll just continue on to what I was saying. Okay, so now this was a situation that required an exorcist. So what is an exorcist? One who has the ability to cast out evil spirits. Actually, the word exorcist comes from the Greek word exorcismus, which means sorcerer. What is a sorcerer? The one who controls spirits. Oh, good. Great. So, after the break, I'm going to answer a few questions that have been sent to me by the phone, and we will see where we go here. Now, listen, give me a call. The number is below. If you have a problem, if you feel like you've got a spirit problem, we can take care of it over the phone. This is some real stuff. Or, if you need a reading, I do live readings as well. And pretty much ask anybody of the crew here at Global Enlightenment Radio Network. I take care of my people. So I'll see you guys in exactly 1 minute. Thank you. So if we got some sweet jams, now's the time. Outstanding.
I guess you made it back. Hello, Reverend.
Well, it was a minute, wasn't it?
That was 3 minutes.
That was
What?
quick, though.
Thank you.
Yeah, that was 1 minute. Oh, hold on. We're talking God's
1
time.
minute. 1 minute for eternity. Okay, so
All
yeah, here I am. I felt like I was swinging the breeze. So, did anybody call? Anybody send me a message? Does anybody love me? Anyway, I don't care.
Well,
I
you
love
know,
you, but I
no.
don't have
Somebody
the
loves you.
And
That's all right, buddy. I appreciate that, Chris. You know I love you right back. Okay, so now we know what an exorcist is. An exorcist is somebody who is specially qualified and called. There are many people, by the way, who call themselves exorcists, and they've gone through years of training in the religion. And then it takes them the success rate is not so hot, but they call themselves exorcists. An exorcist, a true one, should have the call of God on them. Do not get yourselves involved in the paranormal if you are not in a place where you can spiritually handle it. I mean, oh my gosh. People have gotten themselves roasted, toasted, tattooed, and everything else. There was a case I actually had up in Massachusetts where there was a middle-aged man. He was like, oh, I'm really into this paranormal stuff. So, that's right, these demons don't play. And so he was like, hey, I want to have a piece of this pie. So he was like, he knew I guess his sister's house was haunted or something. And so he was like, yeah, he was like, man, I'm going to take photos, and if this is really you, would you please let me know? Would you show me something? Speak to me. And of course, what you've done, because remember, as I said before, human beings have the door that you can enter in by. See, human beings are the ones that have a say in what happens in this world. We have the say. I should have a t-shirt. We have a say. We have a say. Even God says that human beings have a say. And he also stands at the door and he knocks. Now the devil, he could care less about human beings. And he will manipulate, he will lie, he will cheat. There are people today that are going around helping people, they think they are, spreading lies that the adversary has placed in motion to promote his agenda. And they think they're helping people, not realizing that they are actually being manipulated by the devil. So that's why you have to test them. You have to test people. You have to test the spirits. Test them. And if they don't line up with the test, then they're not sent from God. We are in the end game. So that is why it is important that we get our facts. If it is not empowering human beings in their divine right, I guess you could say, their divine privilege, it's all about restoring mankind to the image and likeness of the Creator for which they were created. That's the beauty. Human beings were created to exemplify all the beautiful characteristics of the invisible God. Even this world in itself, nature, everything in nature also declares the invisible qualities of God. So like, for instance, when I say call in, and if you need a reading, what I'm saying to you is I will say a blessing over you first. Ask a question, whatever the question might be. God knows. If I have something, I'll give it to you, and if I don't, I don't. But it should be refreshing, because if it educates you, if it encourages you, and if it comforts you, you're headed in the right direction. And if it brings life and more abundantly, then you're headed in the right direction. So, how do I know then if I'm being afflicted by an evil spirit is the second question I got. Well, how have you been feeling lately? Been feeling more depressed and it's been sticking around? Feel like you just want to stay away from your mom, your dad, your parents, your brothers, sisters. Maybe you just don't want to hang out. Did you in some way do something like this gentleman did? He found out his sister had a haunted house, went over there, wanted to communicate with the spirit. What happened? He wound up being oppressed for years. Seeing the eyes when he's trying to sleep, the banging on the wall. He was like, and then his wife got sick. His animals started getting sick. It was just like this huge string of bad luck that kept on going on and on and on. You feel like you're not alone, like somebody's watching you. It's not paranoia. Maybe it would be if it wasn't connected to all the other things. You feel like also, maybe you feel like you're not yourself, like the reality around you shifting. There are certain things, like, how do you know the things you do? Or did you discover that you have a supernatural ability to do things like before you didn't, but all of a sudden now you do? There was a guy who could make it rain inside a building. It was a party trick to him until he realized it was actually the demon doing it in him. So there are these different signs that we look for. And of course we have to analyze it. Is it something? Now, were these pre-existing before they became noticeable to you? No. I'm not a depressed person. But now I'm like wicked depressed. Okay. No. I'm not an isolated kind of person, but now I am. Okay. And so you see what I'm saying? So are these things coming up? Was there a time when something happened to you? A lot of times, a person who's been raped, they might have spirits in them because it was a manipulation of those two people converging at that point, and that act of violence opened the door for the demon to come in and attach themselves, and then gradually, little by little, gain permission to have more access to their life. But when someone's possessed, a lot of times they develop supernatural abilities. Some people die, and then they come back, and all of a sudden they have powers. Maybe it wasn't because you died that you got the powers. Maybe it was because at that point you came so close to death that the demon came in and attached themselves. It's all about the satanic agenda. That's all it really is. And it's all for one thing, the end game. That's what these things, now, yes, the power of the devil has been broken, but it has been broken only for those who have made their peace with God. You see my point? It's like Jesus did it for the whole world, yes. But, so really, in a sense, the devil is far more broken than you could possibly imagine, but because humanity as a whole refuses the truth, refuses to acknowledge the truth, then, or doesn't know the truth, they remain under the thumb of somebody who has been defeated. Before, he had some power, he had some backing. But when Jesus fulfilled that prophecy by, God in the beginning, now it's over. And in the military, we call it a mop-up. We go into a place where the war already happened, and there might be skirmishes still, but people don't want to believe that the war is over, so you kind of have to mop it up. That's what's going on here. That's what the exorcist is doing. He's just mopping up what's already been done. The battle the war has been won. And so these demons are still coming along for the ride. So when you got somebody like George Soros and you got these other people, these are all people being manipulated because the adversary is still working towards an end game. And one day he will have it. One day, the restrainer that has restrained him for so long will be removed, and he will have a season of free reign to do as he pleases. At that point, he will have achieved his globalization plan, which he's done before when the Tower of Babel. Now he's doing it again. And he will have it. And then there will be somebody who will be the head of that. Now remember, spirit beings can't manifest in the world without a body, so somebody will rise up and be the head of this global government, and then Lucifer will possess that man and rule in his body. Why not? He did it already. He did it with Judas, for crying out loud.
A lot.
You see what I'm saying? And it's
Yeah. That's why it's important that you don't mix Caesar and the Spirit of God together.
That's why you gotta know what you gotta know, because in this case, what you don't know will hurt you. So there's no such thing as a random haunting or a random possession. It all falls into place. There are reasons for it. And when you submit your life to God, then the beautiful purposes of God can work. Now angels, not the angels that serve God, the ones that did not fall, they're not interested in flashy this and flashy that. But I cooperate with angels on a regular basis. They do what they do, I do what I do, and we work together. There was a case where there was a young man that was possessed outright. He couldn't even enter the house because of the presence of God that was there. But he ended up coming into the house, and then the battle really began. Oh, we have a caller.
You have a
I'll
caller.
tell you the rest of the story after.
Carol, you're on.
Yes. Hello. Hello, caller. Hello.
Carol?
Carol. Okay.
Well, apparently.
If she can get the mic on. There you go.
Hello.
And she muted herself.
Hello,
back.
caller. How can I help you today? Welcome to Road to Hope.
Hello.
How can I answer? Hi.
Nope, hang on 1 second.
Okay.
I'm trying to get my video. You'll recognize who it is in a minute.
All right. Because I don't recognize your voice.
Oh, God, no.
I heard of the name before.
Carol?
Yeah, it's not working. Hang on 1 second.
Hello,
We
Carol.
know the
How are you?
voice already.
Everything's... Wait, I gotta go off this.
All right, while you're doing that, I'll
It's all
continue
about
what
the
I'm saying.
fingers, Father. It's all about the fingers.
Magical fingers.
There's power in those fingers.
There is. There is.
I know.
So the angels, so that case I had was talking about,
Yeah.
well, the angels were cooperating with me, and when that deal was very hard to get out, the angels came, and the demon inside the person actually saw the angels because they're being spirit beings, they could see it. But the reaction that the demon had was reflected in the person's body. So he had this look of terror on his face, and he was screaming, "No, no, you can't take me!" And then instantly, he was himself. The angels had come and snatched the demon out of the body. But there had to be a human agent in order to release the authority, so that the angels could come in and do that. That is part of the government that God operates. So go ahead, Carol. What's your question or your comment? I guess I don't need to see your face. It's all right.
Okay, Kathleen.
Kathleen, Carol, whoever you are.
Jesus. Nope, wrong voice. Well-
I do have a comment as well.
Ah, Carol.
No.
It is Carol.
It
So
is
Carol,
Carol.
how are you? How you been? Hello? Okay.
Okay.
I've been
Well, I'll
good.
just
I've been
keep continuing
good.
until-
Sorry.
You
Just
got it.
There's a
there we
delay
go.
in here, so
Oh yeah, because you're listening on the either Facebook or YouTube. There is a slight delay, like a minute.
yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So now I'm on the Zoom, so I was hearing you in two different ears, which was very weird.
Uh-oh.
Oh, yes.
One of them's a false
What
flag.
is up?
I just pop on. I watched.
Okay.
We've had some great chats in the past, and I just enjoy. I'm just listening at
We
the
did a
moment. I've only
session
just
together.
come on, so
Oh, okay. Well, feel free to listen to the earlier part because I was kind of feeding off of a colleague's show when he was talking about George Soros and how the government and there's the conspiracy. And I was kind of feeding off of that, talking about a spiritual government that's going on, how the forces of darkness were manipulating the people who are the people in power today.
yeah, I think
For
we're in
evil, I
a
mean,
spiritual
yeah,
warfare
evil
right
people.
now, and
Exactly.
feeling it, feeling it.
Yep. Yeah. We talked about that too, Carol, didn't we?
We did.
And there was this wonderful family that you and I worked with, and they're doing fine. So, always
Yeah.
good to hear how,
There we go.
and, the affliction. There we go. Hi.
Hi.
One of the biggest things that the forces of darkness love to manipulate people with is guilt. Wouldn't you say, Carol?
I would, yeah, for sure. Guilt and fear and so those lower vibrations that they really feed off that.
Now, Carol, she does a lot of mediumistic work. She also does a lot of spiritual counseling for people. So, when I say we did a session together, she had a client, which I won't go into detail about, but she had a client that she thought that would be best served by having me talk to them. And so we tag teamed that one, and that turned out to be a successful one. But so she knows a thing or two about how the things work behind the curtain, I guess you could say, with the way good and evil is working. So that was kind of we are part of a group called Awakened that's on the internet. So, and I was invited to be a part of that. Who would have thought a reverend waking up? Yo, I'm woke, yo. Woke. In the house.
You as a woke.
I am woke. G. So anyway, yeah. So
And you muted. Rev.
You
I
woke
had to mute myself, folks, because I was making a request for
Coffee?
for this. I had to have my water.
Oh,
my
no.
gosh, yapping for almost 2 hours. I need some water.
Is it holy water?
Or is it vodka? In the name of Patris et Filii Spiritus Sancti, amen. Little salt, boom. Now it's holy water. Yeah. And here's the sad thing. How many priests, there you go. How
Yeah.
many priests or reverends, when they make holy water, all they do is take it out of the tap, they say a little prayer, without any faith. I mean, sometimes. But that's okay, because again, in the book of Revelation, it talks about two churches. Oh, where did Carol go? Did she leave?
I'm here.
She's there.
Oh, okay. So, Carol, was there anything you wanted to talk about, or did you want me to say a blessing of you, see if I could see anything? What can I do for you?
I'm just hanging
Well,
out.
the car, babe. I'm right here. Oh, okay. Hang out. And if you have any questions, whatever. But if you
Yep.
want me to, to do a blessing on you,
Sure.
got it.
I'm open for that.
all right. All right. Let me bless you right now, then. Father, I thank you for Carol. Father, I ask that if there's anything I need to see, would you please show me? Because I bless Carol in Jesus' name. Amen. Interesting. Now, I know that you're in Nova Scotia, right?
Correct.
You had said that, or up north. But I saw a little girl in another country. So I don't know if you were in Europe or something,
I
but
was
I
born in
saw
England.
you in another country. Okay. Did we talk about that before?
No.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay, because I wasn't sure because it sounded familiar. So if we did, well, then I apologize. But I saw you as a little girl in another country. You were skipping. I don't know if you like to skip a lot, but you energetic and singing. See you singing a lot. And you had experiences with angels when you were little or younger. There was I say an angel, and I don't know if there was a pivotal point for you when you saw this angel, but some of your playmates that you had when you were little were the invisible kind, and I'm not talking about pretend.
Yeah,
So,
I'm pretty sure.
yeah. But there's still that element of you working with angels. I don't know. I don't know if you told me that you have an angel deck or not, but I do see angels coming and going from you, and actually more recently than before. So I don't know if you've seen angels since we've chatted, but it's recent. And I would look, and to add to that, I would most certainly look forward to seeing more activity of angels in the days. When I say days ahead, I'm talking about especially by Christmas. So there's some things. There's something coming up for you that's really good. Yeah, something's coming and it's good. It's really good, and it's the angels bringing that. So, and there's been something you've been saying that's been triggering a change for you. So I don't know if you've been working on speaking out over yourself, blessing or something, but there's something that is being honed in on what you're. Okay, yeah. So look forward to that because that's going to be good. That's going to be good for you.
Yeah, there's something to do with public speaking, I think, coming, but
yeah. Okay, public speaking. Okay, but I also see a book, so I don't know if I know we talked about that before. So, but there's a new book, not the one you wrote, but new one coming out.
okay.
Did we talk about that too, or is that something that
I don't think so, but I keep starting.
I don't think we talked about that.
No. And you're right about the angels too. Like it's very strange for me because I never resonated with angels. You know, knowing my path as you do, we're on the different sides of the coin. But when I do my readings, I get angel. I feel like my wings go out, and then I know I'm in the presence of an angel.
Okay. Yeah, and you're going to get more of that.
That's exciting.
Because you're drawn to that. And it's because there has been one particular angel that has been with you ever since you were little.
Okay.
Actually, more than one, but there's one in particular that really was assigned to you when you were little and protected you when you were little. From, I don't know, like, I don't know, protected from being snatched, I think. It's like something happened along the way where an angel protected you from being taken. I don't know if there was an enemy that your family had, or there was somebody that wanted to do your family bad, evil, some unforgiveness there. But I don't know what it was, but the angel was there to ensure your protection. Does that make any sense to you?
It's not triggering a memory, but I don't remember a lot of my childhood. I think I blocked some of that.
Okay.
So I might ask my parents About,
Yeah.
I know when
But
we moved when I was 12, but
yep. Another thing that was characteristic of you as a child was joy. And you still have that. I see your face, but I see this little girl when I see you right now, and it's like really cool. Because it's like you were really dressed nicely too. Maybe there wasn't a lot of money, but
No.
yet it was this really nice outfit. Am I wrong with that? I'm sorry if I was wrong with that.
no, it
Was I
I
wrong?
mean, we
There
weren't
wasn't a lot of
rich. I
money?
mean, my mom used to make quite a few of
Okay.
my clothes, and so she always made
And
sure.
so I saw these really nice dresses, yeah.
Mm.
And so she dressed you well, is what I was trying to say. And I saw this little ponytail, and it was like, okay.
Still have it.
I see you still kept it. Yep. And there was a beautiful little bow,
Hmm.
dark blue, I think.
Yep.
But, yep. And there was this for, aw, so cute. Why am I seeing that? Oh, to remember, to not to forget, but to remember what it is to be a child is what the message for you today is.
Thank
Is
you.
to remember the simplicity of childhood, and how the simple faith of a child, the trust that a child has. And so with this case, with you and your relationship with your creator, is that simplicity of childhood, and the things that are coming ahead. Stay simple, be a child, and the guidance that you need will be given.
Thank you.
So that is, yeah. I'm so glad I had a chance to bless you. Oh my gosh, you're an awesome person. I love you, actually. You're great. And I just love that we clicked when I first met you. There is actually a woman that you remind me of. Her name is Melinda. I don't know if you've met Melinda. She's part of the Global Enlightenment Radio Network family, but she's also a psychic. She does mediumistic work, but she does other things. But she calls herself the rescue psychic. So, but she has a very sweet persona about her. So, I would love to get the three of us chit-chatting.
That would be awesome.
Yeah, she's great. She's really good people, and she did a reading for me on the show, on her show yesterday. I'd asked her to, and she was drawn to the deck of animal spirits, and she picked out one of them was a fox, and what she doesn't know is that there was a young lady that I talked to in council that gave me some really great advice last night, and her nickname is Fox, and yet she had mentioned it, something like that. And then it was just amazing, just good stuff. So, but isn't that neat how things just seem to come together, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So, well, is there anything else I could do for you?
Where'd she go?
Oh, I guess she left.
I think her internet disconnected. Well, we've been all over us on around the East Coast are having short droppage, big droppage, hi honey, and everything else today. But I must say, Rev, what, Katie? She's got a smile on her face. Guess what I've
Thanks.
discovered? I've got to make a wonderful announcement today. You want to know what it is?
Really, what was that?
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, it's not the announcement you want to hear, Rev. No, the announcement I want to state is that I'm just so proud of this network, and I'm proud of you, Rev. I mean, wow, you actually have a little watch party going on the side over there. And
Really?
yeah,
Thank you.
Sitting here watching it, and people are like, yeah, I agree. And this one's actually in Christian Spirit group. They are totally agreeing with you. So the idea that I was having today was, I was thinking what to do today, what to do special today. And I called Junior Christina up, the one that had the voice that came out of him. And Junior was excited today. He felt so relieved, and he was kind of happy. And then he came and said, "Oh, did I tell you that the largest record label down here in Texas is going to be sending me all their singers and band members to do an interview?"
Wow.
Junior. So I'm very proud of that. I had to say that out loud. Outside of that, I was thinking about what you were saying today about David. Little David. Now, I've always wondered, okay, Noah had all the kids, and before they took sail, they all grabbed basically a woman so they could have on the trip. And whatever happened to the son that walked away? I mean, it reminds me sort of the story of Cain and Abel, when Cain was cast out and told to get out of here, kid. And then you get Moses has the same issue, one rebellious child that just goes away. Now, I always wondered if the human population, if it was based on survival needs, those would be two of the people to watch out, would be around when it comes to survival, because they always seem to survive.
That's right. That's true.
I mean, they know how to survive, and they know how to get away. Now,
like Ishmael, for instance.
Yes.
Ishmael was like, we're done. We're out.
yeah, it's like...
And then he grew up and became the father of the Arab nation.
Right. Now, the question actually is, whatever happened to those bloodlines?
What's that?
The sons of Moses after the flood.
You mean the sons of Noah? after the
Noah.
flood?
Yeah, Noah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, Moses was a pharaoh. It's kind of interesting. I mean, he went back to his... He went full circle, went out and came back into the palace.
Well,
but I'm talking about...
I believe that there were, yes, that the bloodline of Noah was preserved. So, but I do believe that there were survivors of the flood. And so that, God did manage to, work out that bloodline so that it could increase and grow. So, after all, the, little bit of the Nephilim survived. So, clearly it must have meant that there were also some human beings that survived as well. Not every human being on the planet was corrupted with the Nephilim seed.
Now, then the question becomes, why would a flood kill a Nephilim? I mean, there's certain...
Think about how the flood happened. Up until the flood, you assume that there was rain, but there wasn't. The way the atmosphere was, and even science says back in prehistory, the world was like a tropical island. So it was, the Bible says that the moisture would the dew of the day would water the grass, kind of thing. And that's how everything was irrigated.
Right.
It wasn't until the flood. Now, also, the world was entirely different back then. The Earth's crust had covered vast amount of water. So there was only a little bit of surface water at the time. And God opened up the wells of the earth. So could you imagine volcanoes of water
spraying up into the atmosphere. And at the same time, God is making it rain at the same time. Now, I have been in the rainstorm in Central America where the drops, my friend, were about this stinking big. I mean, I never saw raindrops the size of prunes and possible, like, apricots. I was in the rain for, I remember one time I counted 15 seconds. And I was drenched.
Yeah.
Now, it rained so hard. Now, the way there was a scientist that looked at the description. Imagine volcanoes of water, like all over the place, like water volcanoes is bursting. And then rain torrential coming down. So these people really didn't stand a chance to survive in such a harsh environment. They found cover and everything like that, but the water was rising in a drastic, it was like tsunami kind of water rising. So that's the intensity. So yeah, these giants, and they were still mortal. You know what I'm saying? They weren't immortal, they were mortal because they had fallen. The angels had fallen, and they had mingled with human beings, thus inheriting mortality. And so, even though the bloodline was different, they were still, mortal. So
I get
that's
it.
where they.
I get it.
And in the 1800s, why is there all kinds of news articles about farmers discovering skeletons of giants when they decided to dig, for foundation of the home? And then government people came by and were like, nope, we'll take that for science. And then the bones disappeared. Why? Because if they, again, the satanic agenda, the Luciferian agenda was in place.
Okay, here's the good one then.
To blot out that revelation.
Oh, I got a good one for you now. If the Nephilim were not immortal, the parents of the Nephilim are. Where are they? Oop, that's something no one's ever thought of, isn't it?
That's very good. Because when it talks about the birth of the Nephilim, and not that I ascribe to the Book of Enoch, but they talk about how the Nephilim were born, and that they literally, like alien, burst out of their mothers. Thinking about it, I mean, you're giving birth to a giant. You're a normal human woman. It's going to cause problems. So most of the parents, most of the women, were destroyed.
Hold on, it's going to cause problems. You're going to birth the kid.
Get my point?
It's going to cause a problem. Hey, ladies, do not go with a fallen angel, okay?
So, and as far as the male side of it,
well, I can't say male.
Well, that's interesting. Thank you for mentioning that, because it said that the angels that lost their first estate, they were thrown into the bottomless pit. They were chained in hell. The problem with that is that when the translators, anytime there was a spiritual dimension named, they just called it hell.
Hell, right.
That's why study opens things up. They were not thrown into hell.
They were thrown on earth.
They were thrown into a place. Yeah, no. Well, the demons and stuff are on the earth, yes. And Lucifer, the chief of all the fallen angels, is on the earth. But his compatriots, those of relative rank with him, the generals who were with him, were thrown in after the flood. They were thrown into the bottomless pit, which is called Tartarus or Tartarus.
Tartarus, yeah.
And that is a section of the spirit realm that is a prison for them. But a day is coming in the prophecy in the book of Revelation where it says the Archangel Michael will open the bottomless pit.
Uh-huh.
And these angels will come out.
You know, I got my hand up for a question, right?
Yeah.
Okay, if they were thrown
Go
out,
ahead.
if they were thrown out,
for
hold on,
Hello?
I'm ready for you. If they were thrown out and they were thrown to Tartarus, how did these women get pregnant? Tartarus, yeah. How did they get pregnant?
Again, I said after.
After, okay.
So if you're going to ask questions, you got to pay attention to the teacher.
Yes, teacher. Yes, a teacher.
So funny.
Okay.
No, I play.
I know.
I'm playing.
I know. So after they gave birth to,
Got you right here.
all right. Now after they gave birth, the women gave birth. So
Yeah.
most of them. So basically, we still have immortal beings walking the earth, and they don't reveal themselves.
Possible.
And they don't reveal themselves. Why?
Possible.
I mean, what would be the fear? You're immortal. Why would you give a damn? You're unstoppable.
Because,
you're
or
immortal.
maybe they're not.
If
We
you,
just don't know. What we do know is this: that the authors were judged immediately and thrown into a bottomless pit until they would be judged with finality, which is the lake of fire. The lake of fire was actually made for the angels, not human beings. People misconstrue that all the time. Is there a caller? Did I say
yes,
that?
Yeah.
Carol has returned. Dun dun dun. In a minute.
Yeah. Okay.
Here
So-
she is.
Yeah, Carol can
Yeah.
listen. So anyway, hi Carol. So you did finish your question. Now, are there immortals on the earth now? Some say there is, like Saint Germain, and some of these others. Elizabeth Clare Prophet saying that, which, whatever. Maybe. Does it really matter? No, because the agenda is the agenda. I mean, maybe they were damned to walk the earth to watch that no matter what they do, God's plan will always stand. I don't know. But I know why, partially, very partially, why Lucifer was allowed to remain on the earth and why he wasn't cast into the pit. He was allowed on the earth
He was an
to
archangel.
watch the unfolding of the plan and the judgment of God.
Well, he has the power of an archangel.
Yeah.
So who's going to really be able to stand against him?
Well, he did have the power of the archangel until it was stripped from him.
Well, did it ever say it was stripped from him? That's where I was trying to remember. The power was given by God, but God never stripped him. He cast him out was the statement. That's where I'm trying to. So you
then
still
it
got a
says-
full-powered Lucifer out there.
Yeah, until the day that the child of a woman would destroy his power, and that was Jesus.
So before
when,
Jesus, he was at
Jesus
full
ruled-
power. He could have made a mockery of this earth. He could have just gone ahead and turned into a
He could've.
molten ball of water and didn't care. Because he's immortal. He had the power of
If he had done that, but he wouldn't have done that. The reason why is because that's not what he wants.
Well,
He wants to be God of this world.
but actually, more so, he wants
And
the
all
humans to
mankind
worship
bow his
him.
knee.
Oh, sorry. He wants the humans to worship his kind. Not him, his kind.
Him.
More so his kind.
No. Now you're just adding mumbo Twilight Zone crap.
No, I'm
So-
thinking about
no.
it because why would you want, if you're an immortal, why would I want a human to worship me? I'd rather for you to worship my kind, reverend them as a god, and then we sit and reign over you. But I will
No,
be the
could
leader.
sit and argue with you, but that would be pointless. So I would just stick with what God says.
Okay.
Yes, he's been allowed to rule. He's been allowed to influence and to rule. But when anyone who calls upon the name of the Lord, as far as, basically cries out to God to rescue them, then he will show them the truth that Jesus already redeemed mankind and restored the divine image that was lost. Now, human beings have free will. So now there is a section of people who have applied this to themselves and people who haven't. Now those people who haven't are still under the thumb of a defeated foe. But as far as those of us who have, the devil and his minions have been disarmed against us.
And then I've never heard of anyone battling, quote unquote, Satan, Lucifer, himself. Mm-hmm. No one's ever fought, the big guy themselves. They've always said, we fought demons.
And defeated him. Well, Jesus defeated Satan. So what would be the point?
But what was the defeat?
He undid the work of Satan.
It was just trickery.
You were there. I guess you weren't there when I explained.
Yeah, I saw the storyline.
Murdered mankind.
Yeah, but it was just mild trickery at that point. That was gameplay. That was not even.
It was the actual thing.
But it's more gameplay.
Mankind was murdered at that point. Because they were separated from mankind. I'm not arguing.
I'm trying to figure out, because when you look at Jesus' side, you see two different angles. A person with strategy, which is what Lucifer would use more so than anything else, would be like, yeah, you know something? Right. I take my 50%, you take your 50%, we call it a day.
Right. Here's the problem with that. You're seeing Lucifer as an equal with God. That's impossible. Lucifer is a fallen cherub. When he fell, he lost a lot of his glorious power because of the fact that he fell. He turned into darkness, not light. Though he emits light because he can, he is not a light being, so he does not possess the divine power he once had. And then as time went on, the restrainer that's in the world is actually restraining and binding up his power, so he can't do what he wants to do. He can only watch. In a sense, it's like a house arrest. He has house arrest on the earth, and he can only do so much.
So he basically has no power.
Of the fact that he's been arrested.
So he basically has no power. He cannot come out himself to do a job. Instead, he has to send a minion.
Exactly.
That's almost like that's almost as bad as saying the Godfather sends out a hitman to go kill somebody, when the Godfather can sit there and say, you know something, screw this man, I'm going to go do this myself. I'm going to show the boys how it's done. I mean, in reality,
this is the thing that
the reality is kind of it doesn't really balance, because there has to be a balance.
There is no balance. That's what you're trying to do. Is you're trying to balance something that's not there. It's like again. I'm talking within Christianity.
Okay.
I am talking with Yahweh, God, Jesus. Okay, all of that. There is no balance. There just is. There is light, and there has been pockets of evil or darkness because of the rebellion, which was already dealt with. When Jesus died on the cross, he restored all of mankind to a place of light. So the devil has been restrained. Imagine now people given the same authority to rule over Satan and the minions as if they were Jesus. And instead of being one, now there are thousands upon thousands. And every time they see the devil pop up, they can stop it by commanding them to be quiet, or to commanding them to... So, yeah, he is severely bound, but he uses deception because he uses the intellect. He uses the mind because people try to figure things out. Faith is entirely different. That faith is the relying. It's the spiritual apparatus that God has given human beings to take what is invisible and manifest it in the natural. but it is also the ability to plug into God and to depend upon God like a branch depends upon the tree or the vine.
In other
So
words, we're all
the
part of it.
person who is connected with God has been delivered out of the authority of darkness. Now the devil has no right to them, no authority over them. It's like they're light now, and the evil one cannot touch it.
Okay, so then it goes back to this.
And, oh yeah, now somebody said that Lucifer and Jesus were the same, like brothers. That's like
Nah,
that's in Mormonism says that.
I
Jehovah's
wouldn't believe
Witness
it.
says that. The problem with this is that Jesus, in his humanity as a man, he is fully human, but he is fully human, elevated to God level. The divine expression of what humanity. He's a divine expression of humanity now. So imagine an infinite God, and then there's Lucifer. It's like taking a bucket of water out of the ocean, and then you muddy it up a little bit. Now you got muddy water. That's like Lucifer compared to the ocean. So it's just like, there it is. But imagine taking the ocean and putting it into a person. And that would be Jesus. Jesus is literally the walking ocean, the physical manifestation of the invisible God. So they can't be of the same energy, because if light is positive and healing, and darkness is stealing, killing, and destroying, you can't have both in the same place. And light always defeats dark. Even science proclaims the truth of it.
Well, no, black holes swallow light.
Yes.
Black holes swallow light.
Yeah, absolutely.
Kind of interesting. Next good question, because you already answered that one from Carol. Okay, well, the next good question would be, why hasn't this great evil...
Is it a question or is it a comment?
It's a question. Why hasn't this great evil ever shown itself? This great evil that's been going around for over millennia has never been seen.
Think about that question before you ask me.
It's never been
You
seen.
live in a world.
No, you're seeing
No,
aspects.
You live in a world where children are being molested,
That's human.
where pedophilia is considered to be another sexual choice.
But we also
Yeah,
looking
let's
at
come into
people.
that.
Yeah, but you've never seen this great evil. It has never walked. That's the weird. That's the.
Guaranteed.
Oh, what do you mean he hasn't revealed it?
It has never walked.
Jesus, right?
If-
That's why I'm laughing at this. How can you possibly ask that question? Maybe he hasn't revealed itself to you, and that's a good thing. But I have seen it, and I have spoken to it.
It's all around us.
I'm trying.
Exactly. Thank you, Carol.
It could have been a
So-
spirit entity that was there, because this great evil that people are talking about is never just physically just manifested.
And you forgot what I told you. Be you demonic or divine, you cannot manifest in this world unless it's through a human agent.
There are lots of them.
You could say, when I look at Hitler,
There are lots of them.
He wanted to kill the Jewish people. He hated the Jews. Yet he was part Jew himself.
Yeah.
But why?
They not his
Because
mother.
that was part of the satanic agenda to destroy Israel. Why is it that nations still want to take out Israel? They come up with all kinds of reasons, but there is a perfect reason.
Even the
If
Catholic
Israel is
Church.
blown off the map, then Jesus does not return.
Even the
You know
Catholic
that?
Church
Or you were too
supported
busy
that.
yip yapping like a little kid behind the.
Even the Catholic Church
class.
supported Hitler. I mean, I have to say that. But that's a fact. The Catholic Church did.
What does that tell you about Catholicism then?
Well, they're the birthplace for Christianity.
Maybe Catholicism is not supportive.
Of anything.
Maybe there are portions of Catholicism that does not support the truth about Jesus.
So then I still say, if God manifested himself on earth,
Now, are you arguing or are you asking questions?
I'm asking. I'm
I
trying to
don't
figure out the
your
point.
questions.
If God
Well, if you're
manifested,
asking so that people around you can be educated, I will gladly answer your question.
if God manifested himself
Well, that's not
on
my job.
earth during the time periods,
I think he's trying to understand this whole thing.
yeah, because I'm
Well,
kind of
for
lost on the
us,
manifestations. Because if you have angels that
Because
come
we've got
in
people
human
watch party that
form,
are listening, and I want to make sure that they are getting an education.
you
So
get,
please.
if you got angels
I apologize
manifesting
for
in
interrupting.
human form, fallen angels manifesting in human form, they're all having Nephilim babies running around, slaughtering people and eating kids, and oh, I'm the Jolly Green Giant. Why hasn't this Lucifer
They
done
did.
it?
Because that was changed after the flood. Because that was again a demonstration that no matter whatever you do, you can never undo what God does. And remember, God is the great teacher. He's not just teaching you and me, he's teaching angels, and he's particularly teaching the forces of darkness and Lucifer why he's doing what he's doing. In a sense, it's almost like a great court situation where he is just basically giving the reason for his indictment. But as far as the reproduction, that was destroyed. He shut that right down. He's like, that will never happen again. And so it hasn't happened again. But that was the point, and I thank you for mentioning that, because that was the point I wanted to raise. Probably make it next week. But that was the point I wanted to raise. Jesus said, in the last days, it will be as it was the days of Noah unto me. So, are we having signs in the sky? Yes. Are we having extraterrestrial beings possibly kidnapping people and experimenting on them genetically? Yes. Well, that's not anything new.
No.
It is the same thing, but this time they are lesser angels trying to accomplish what the generals that were imprisoned were trying to do. So yeah, of course, there's nothing new under the sun. So yeah, to answer your question, yeah, of course it's being done, because they're trying to reproduce an effective plan so that they can win this end game. They tried to kill Jesus and they tried to knock him out, and that failed. So now what they're trying to do is ruin the integrity of God's prophecy. If they could take out Israel, then the temple will never be built, and then that way the Messiah will never come. If you kill Israel, then all of the prophecy, and that's the thing, God has all of the prophecy in the book of Revelation and everything, as far as God's end game, is all about Israel and Jerusalem. It all centers there. That's why I always tell people, if you're going to study prophecy, look at it from an Eastern point of view and not a Western point of view. So in an Eastern point of view, if you commit genocide and kill all the Jewish people, well then God failed in protecting his people. Number two, if you take out Israel, then game over, God. Guess you can't return to take up your throne in Israel if there ain't one. So that's what they're thinking. In prophecy, it says when Jesus is on the way coming back, they will try to shoot him out of the sky. Again, not the sharpest people by that time, I think. I don't know about you, but if I see somebody coming out of the sky on a horse, I might run. Especially if I knew he was ticked. Just a thought. But nah, I'm just going to try to shoot and kill the Almighty. That's a smart one. Okay, no wonder. Okay, and what grade did you graduate? 5? Okay, whatever. Was there anything else?
Are we talking about
Can I pray a
Israel?
blessing for you, brother?
Oh, I got one more question. Are we talking about Israel the people or Israel the land?
I just read Carol's question. What was your question again? I'm sorry. It's a good one.
Do you think the fires and bombs in Beirut are connected to this?
But I'm going to answer that question after I answer yours, because you asked yours first. So what was your question?
Is Israel the people or Israel the land?
Both. Both, because when God created the people, he also made, just like Adam. Adam is very much connected to the land because he was made of the land, right? Because he was made of clay. So that's why nature is connected with man, and why all of nature groans for the glorious manifestation of the B'nai Elohim, the sons of God. Because once the people of God are released, nature is released, because we are inexplicably connected to creation. So as far as the Jewish people are concerned, that's the same thing. God created the Jewish nation out of Abraham and promised them a land that they could have to live in. And so if that land is not there, then God did not keep his promise. Therefore, the integrity of the Word of God is pointless.
Ooh,
So that's what he's trying to do.
I got another question.
Both.
Oh, but you got to get to hers first.
Okay, well, I'll answer that after. Yep. Now, as far as the bombings in Beirut, yeah, I think so. I think it's like growing pains, just like Jesus said that there would be different signs that were like growing pains before the end. That's part of it. You know, the end game is the birth, and we are in the last days, clearly. But the bombings in Beirut, that is the beginning of horrors yet to come, because once the restrainer of evil is taken out of the way, then the most horrific persecution is going to happen to the Jewish people and to Israel. That it is just going to just be a you-know-what storm. And people who are converted during that time, who also receive Christ because they see the rapture happen, they are also going to be persecuted, because they're like, oh, no. I am not going to be manipulated and commanded to be quiet by some puny little Christians like in the last age. If you call yourself a Christian, then I'm lopping off your head. So, yeah, so it is connected, but it's probably more of the birth pains. But we are, so close. Oh, so close.
Okay.
Yeah, so talk to me.
Are you ready for your next good question? Oh, I got one for you this time. So if with Jesus you get the new covenant, the new ideology, the new platform there is, why is everybody concentrating on Israel when Israel is of the old?
Outstanding question.
And
I can also answer.
And those of
I got a part two to that one.
And let me just say, all right, but wait a minute. Let me just say that those who are doing the watch party, thank you. I love you guys. Feel free to call in also with your questions, because I'm here for you as well.
Oh, yeah, please call in. Hop on into the Zoom, because this right here might get hot tonight. Woo, I feel like I got some more power. All right.
Oh, it's already getting hot. Come on.
Hold on now. I got to get, hold on. I got to cool off a little bit. All right, so why are we concentrating on the Israel today? Oh, hold on.
Let the steam out.
Okay. I'm ready.
Hi, Carol.
Carol's even jumping for this one. So with the new covenant, why we have the new Israel, why are we concentrating on Israel today, and why are we starting with the Zionist agenda, which is to create Israel, which was the agenda during World War II, when Israel was formed and thrown into the heart of the Middle East, cut through their neighboring country illegally. Is that part of a biblical ideology, or is it somebody else's agenda?
It is somebody else's agenda. Because right now, the Jewish people have rejected their Messiah, so they are under the influence of the evil one. And again, as I said, all prophecy centers on Israel. So even though it is a new covenant, we're no longer under the law of Moses because all that stuff has been fulfilled in Christ. The fulfillment of the new covenant is in Israel.
But
So,
how can it be back to Israel when we started fresh again? I thought we just eliminated the ideology of Israel because Jesus said himself that they were, when he was in the temple, he had to throw away some tables and said, y'all are nothing but government people looking for money, shaking people down. Right. I mean, I'm done with y'all. I'm walking out.
It's a gradual, it's a gradual thing. First, it was one person, Jesus.
Right.
The only person in humanity that was connected to God. One person. Then it was 12 people. And then it grew. And it continues to grow gradually. So God has what they call dispensations, or different levels of his plan that he releases at certain times. So even though it is this age right now we call the Ecclesia age, or the age of grace. This is where God is like, hey, I flung open the doors of my treasure house. Come on in if you want it. You don't have to earn the thing. It's all for free. Come and get it. But then that day is going to close. And then a new era starts. Now, Jesus did his part, and yes, we are part of a new covenant. Not everybody, although it's available to everybody. It's still growing. But soon, he's going to take his focus off of the non-believing, the Gentiles, which was us, and now he's going to focus his attention back on the Jewish people and Israel. So that is why, even though he initiated the new covenant, he was focused on Israel and on the Jewish people, and they said, no thank you. So he was like, okay, then I will give this treasure to people who didn't even know me, to people who never called out to me, to people who never even bothered to know me. I'm gonna give them what belongs to you, to provoke you to jealousy, so that you will see what you could have had, so that you would go, I want that. Now he is turning his focus back to Israel and back to our elder brethren, the Jewish people, and he's going to start working a redemption plan for them. And during this particular time of prophecy, millions of Jews from all over the world will be drawn back to Israel. And then the Messiah will come and take him.
Okay.
And rule. And the thing is, it's in Israel and in Jerusalem he's going to establish his throne. You already know this.
I gotta know.
You're learning as a child.
Oh,
Don't make me go there.
I gotta go to another question. So what about those people that say the people of Israel are not the true Jews? Boom. Those that say the people of Israel are not the true Jews, but they're gypsies from Eastern Europe, which most of them are.
Okay. As Jesus said,
because you claim a religion doesn't mean you are. You don't
there's neither Jew nor Gentile anymore. No, nor male nor female, nor bond nor free, but all are now one. So, the reason why he's focusing his attention on the Jews and upon Israel is because he made a promise to them. So does it really matter if they are of pure blood Jew or not? No, because it all goes back to have they believed on the one who purchased their salvation? Do they believe on Christ?
Well, most Jews don't.
It does no longer matter what the genetics are. Now it's an issue of spiritual redemption. Then what is on the inside will burst to the outside, and there will be a transformation where the body becomes what we were spiritually. We have then we'll receive the resurrection body, and God will, after the 1,000-year reign, where he rules over the earth for 1,000 years. Then he will destroy the heavens and the earth and recreate it. And he will do it because now all of creation has been redeemed, so now he's going to merge the spirit world and the physical world as one. There will no longer be a veil where we only can see in the physical world. We will be able to perceive all of existence all at once.
And that goes back to the Nephilim story when you say that they merge. Therefore, the storyline actually comes back full circle, because what you just did was give the spirits a chance to get hungry again, because it's kind of interesting that everybody wants a physical body.
So, okay.
Everybody wants a physical body.
Again, that's okay. I will gladly answer your question.
Okay.
You forgot about the lake of fire. The judgment. Because after the 1,000 years, well, what happens is Satan is then thrown into the pit where his pals were, and now there will not be any demonic or any kind of satanic issues for 1,000 years. They will live in a utopia that will literally have the God King sitting on the throne for 1,000 years, and he will reign because he made a promise to the Jewish people that the Messiah would come and reign for 1,000 years, so he's got to keep his word. So that will happen. And so once again, people will cover the earth because, well, in a utopia type place, you know, the humanity will grow at its best. We'll see what the humanity was meant to be like. But then Lucifer will be released for a short season.
And the party will begin.
Once again, he will raise up an army.
The party will begin.
Raise up an army to try to take out the saints. Yep. To take out the saints and undo the plan of God. But God's like, okay. Now that you've learned your lesson, and now that I've done everything that I have shown you, into the lake of fire you go. And that's where they will be forever. And that will be the end of that. Once and for all time. So
I wonder how much of this. Yeah. I'm wondering now more than ever, how much are the stories and the ideologies are true to the point of inference. I'm actually starting to wonder. So what I'm going to actually do is start back and correlate everything from the beginning, from what we do know till now. And I know it's going to take me at least a good 2 years. And I hate to have to do it, but I'm interested.
Do this. Don't muddy the waters. Stick with what you know. Stick with the revelation that you know. So, study the scripture. Follow that scarlet thread and see for yourself if God is consistent or not.
And then there was I saw this question on Wednesday night, and it got me. And I was thinking, hold on. There was a question that was when you were on Katie's show that got me. The Jews had multiple gods, which was kind of funny. And I'm like, wow, somebody actually learned. They actually saw the difference in each god that the Jews had. Which God is it that we actually worship? Because we're supposed to get our religion, ideology, and belief system out of Judea, or are we getting it from a new God, which is a Christian? I don't know. It is all baffled. It's all muddled up because, I mean, if you look at from the beginning.
Let me just point you in the right direction, all right? That's the least I can do for you.
All right.
Under the Old Covenant, on the Old Testament, you are dealing with people who have not received the Holy Spirit. Thus, there is no revelation other than what was given to the prophets. And so you have you have the covenant with Abraham, and even with the covenant of Abraham, which eventually was God then expanded that revelation piece by piece with the giving of the law and all that with Moses. But it started with Abraham, and the entrance into that covenant was believing what this God said. That was it. All you have to do is believe me. If I tell you I'm going to take care of your your sin issue, and if I say that you're perfectly right with me, I want you to believe me. I do. Done. You're instantly righteous in my eyes. And so Abraham became righteous in the eyes of God, or he received the very nature that God has. He became fit for the presence of God. And anyone who became part of that covenant also received that kind of forgiveness. So that's why Sodom and Gomorrah happened, that they had to be taken out, because God cannot judge where he already has judged or forgiven. So the people of God had to be taken out. And same thing when the Egyptians, when they had to take their blood and they put it on the doorpost, and the angel of death passed over. Why? Because they were part of the covenant, therefore they could not receive judgment. So there is consistency. You can see the scarlet thread, that salvation is by grace through faith. That's it. Even in the Old Testament. So, all right. Now, I'm going to ask a question. Okay. All right. So, Father Ed, that's fine. So, you said that it's by believing, right? Yes, absolutely. Okay. So, why is God, contradicting himself? Because then he gives the 10 commandments and these other commandments that we don't know about, and he says, hey, you got to obey that or you're in trouble. What about that? Could you explain that for me?
You're on the path I'm on.
First, Ed, it's none of your business, and I would appreciate you not interrupting me during the show. Listen, you said I could ask whatever question I wanted. Not from you, pal. No, anyway, so let's answer that question.
All
right, so the covenant never changes. He said that was an everlasting covenant to you and to your descendants forever. So there would be a covenant that would be salvation by believing, and that's it. So what does the law come in? The law comes in not to improve the person by works. The law came in to reveal that there still remains a debt to be paid. Even though you have been forgiven, the sin still has to be paid for. It was almost like it was on credit. Okay? So in a way, the law was given as a fence to keep people in the covenant. If you seek to obey the law, you're going to discover that you can't. So here is the animal sacrifice. So take a lamb, and this is what God said to do it in Egypt. And then after that, every year they celebrated Passover by taking a lamb into their house. Now, each action that they were to do was to teach them an aspect of the gospel story, that there would be one that would have to come and be punished for them, the innocent punished for the guilty. And so there really isn't anything different. It's just that what's in old covenant concealed is a new covenant revealed. The light had not yet been turned on for them, so there was a lot of misconception on how God was. It seemed like God was angry and judgmental and always cursing and all that. But what we see today is that there's a devil that comes along and steals, kills, and destroys. So this is why Satan was able to hide in plain sight. He could go and muck up, cause all kinds of chaos and whatever, and God would get the blame. Now, isn't that interesting that today the same thing happens? God, why do you hate me so much? Why did you take this? Why did you hurt my family? Why did you allow this to happen? What now? It wasn't God. It was the devil. But because we have not received the light, we don't see the truth of things. And that's why it's so important why there has to be people who will stand up and be a light in the world. There are people right now that have a call to be a light, to shine the light in the world, and they're not doing it for one reason or another. And it's time for them to get off the fence and do what they're supposed to, because there are people that are in darkness and they suffer needlessly, and I just can't sit by and let that happen. So that's why I do what I do. But that pretty much answers your question. It's not two gods, it's one God, but it's one God revealing his plan stage by stage, or dispensation by dispensation, and he works out each plan. He promises something, he reveals it. Promises it, reveals it. Promises this, or promises something, grants it. Promises something, grants it, and so forth and so on. And then eventually, because while this whole thing is for people, then people got wrapped up in the law, and they got wrapped up in the circumcision, and they thought the circumcision saved them. And no, the circumcision was a sign that they already were saved if they truly believed. Just like people believe that baby baptism saves you. No, it doesn't. It's like circumcision. It's the revelation of Christ that saves the person. But as long as people are willing to, lean upon their religion instead of seeking revelation, the satanic Luciferian agenda keeps trucking along. Yeah.
May I comment?
Go ahead, Carol. It's all your turn, girl.
Go, please.
Somebody.
Come on, Carol.
As
Come
a
on.
as a light worker, as you're learning,
Yes.
not necessarily of the same faith as your other folks here, but definitely agree with coming forward, shining the light so that others can see that and aspire and help those that are in the darkness. And I don't necessarily, the way I believe, I don't necessarily believe there is a hell, but I believe that there are chaos forces, and I believe that there are light forces. And right now the division between the two is growing. So as a light worker, have to stand up, be strong, shine the light as bright as we can without getting into the lower vibrational energies, so that we're not kind of in that vibe, that we stay high, we shine, and that's how we can help.
Isn't the lower vibrational realms of of the astral or the spirit realm, would you call that a hell? I mean, isn't it where all the demons and the lower vibrational beings exist?
They can exist. I mean, we have them here in this world. So in some faith
Yes,
we
we
have
do.
like the middle world, the lower world, the upper world. But the lower
Did
world,
you just say Middle Earth?
middle, yeah,
That's plain. Go ahead.
middle world, upper world. The lower world sometimes being like ground, Mother Earth, and the middle world is where we walk, and then upper world where the heavenly galactic beings. But yeah, so I totally will agree that there's a call right now, and we talked about the spiritual conflict right now, and being a spiritual warrior in this time, while the chaos is being shown, and some I think Odin, you commented earlier about like, why are we seeing it? Well, we definitely are seeing it with the pedophilia, the bombs,
Yes.
the fires,
But that's been going on for millennia.
yeah. So it's always been with us, but I think the division is more visible, and therefore we have to be stronger as light workers.
Agreed. Your thoughts on that? Daryl?
Chris, I'm passing the butt. We almost timed out.
We're almost timed out. Okay, so let me say my final comments then. First, Chris, my gosh, thank you. Now your show's coming up when?
Tomorrow, 9 p.m. our time.
At what time?
9 p.m.
9 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. What's the title of your show?
Mighty Man's World.
Mighty Man's World. Listen,
Yeah.
my friends, if you love me and you think that I'm anybody but anybody, I want you to go. Was it 9 p.m. you said? Mighty Man's World. My buddy Chris has a show. I'm going to be there. I'm going to check it out. Mighty Man. He's going to show up with his underwear on the outside, wearing an S on his chest. That's right. He's going to be coming in with a cape. I already heard Amanda say that she's going to hook him up. So you never know what kind of awesomeness this man's going to bring forward. But I know the guy, so I know it's going to be a good quality. So let me just wrap up what I'm saying. So, listen, so today was about the satanic supernatural agenda. I want to thank you for spending the time with me today, this evening, and listening to what I'm saying. Those of you in the watch party, got nothing but love for you. Ask the questions, even ask me during the week, and then I will feature them on the next show, okay? Because I'm going to have a guest on next week. A little surprise, won't tell you who it is yet. Maybe because I don't know. Just kidding. But anyway, listen. So, right now, what time is it? Do I get to do my favorite line? 11:54. I got a few more minutes. Okay. Okay. So, final questions from anybody. Anybody got any more questions? We got 6 minutes, kinda. Right? We have 6 minutes.
Yeah, I understood exactly what you said. There's people, even including the current government in the U.S., are dangerously mixing Caesar with religion and the church.
Yes.
Like how the
Yes.
evangelicals,
Well said.
you know, like how they lifted the tax restrictions on the evangelicals participating in politics last year, the Sherman Amendment. That
Yep.
that can create a lot of problems, and it's heretical. But that's
Absolutely.
what happens
Well said,
when you
sir.
have rich people running the government. They do things like that.
And since the adversary has been running the world system since he fell here, he knows how to try to funnel all of the world's riches into the pockets of those instruments best loyal to him. But the problem is that Lucifer knows is that it's not a problem for us because the wealth of the wicked is laid up for the righteous. So God knows how to, keep his covenant and to bless the people of God. So that's important.
As you may notice that the rich want to get rid of, you hear it all the time recently, the rich want to eventually end the payroll tax and end social programs for people that are less well off and the sick.
Yes. Okay, so I got to wrap up the show. So did you want to say one more thing, Chris?
I was just saying that I see it all the time.
Yeah, absolutely.
All
right, so Daryl.
I'll share with you after the show what I see.
Yeah, absolutely. That'd be great. That'd be great, my friend. All right. So, my friends, again, thank you for spending the time. I think Daryl just went off, took a break. That's okay. I got a few moments left with you. I love you guys, I do. And I pray for the people who ask me the questions. I pray for them after the show. I do. And I'm going to be praying for you guys in the watch party. I appreciate that. And when I pray, it releases supernatural power because I pray in faith, releasing the power of God. All right. So finally, we learned a lot today, and you guys stuck with me, man. It was awesome. That was good. Look it up yourself. God wants his people to think. Let my people think. Yes, you heard a really good story today. And yes, You saw how it could be connected, but I want you to read yourself. I want you to look at Genesis. I want you to learn about the Nephilim. I'm going to have somebody on who is an expert on the Nephilim. Great guy. And we'll get him on as well, and we'll talk then. So the shows ahead are going to be awesome. Halloween's coming up. Got something planned for that. And if there's an idea that you have for the show, I want you to make a comment. Let me know. Because it's a living show, okay? And it's about the road to hope, isn't it?
Yes.
And by you bringing the suggestions to me about the show, you are now an instrument of blessing for other people. And that is so important. You get to be a blessing by giving me ideas so that we can work this together. And finally, my friends, on the road to hope, no matter where you are, there are always going to be signposts, always going to be somebody somewhere, a voice that speaks and cries out in the wilderness, giving you hope. I hope I am that voice for you. Jesus always stands ready to cleanse and to forgive, and always stands ready, not in judgment. That's not the time for judgment. It is the time of reconciliation and peace. The last part of Carry On Wayward Son, it says this: there'll be peace when you are done. Lay your weary head to rest. Don't you cry no more. And the road to hope, my friends, always remember, the truth really is out there. And his name is Jesus. Thank you.